Hey everyone, it's Bob with SkiEssentials.com.
And I'm Matt.
Me and Matt are here today. We have a 2022 Specialized Turbo Levo alloy in the comp build. And this is a new one for us. We've been kind of working through the Specialized Stump Jumper series and finally got a chance to get on the one with the motor in it. And I think we're both pretty impressed, don't you think?
It's special. It's like cheating, but I love it.
Cheating, but in a good way.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? That looked way too easy.
Sorry, we're a couple of sweaty guys here right now. It's about 90 degrees here in Vermont, and we've been on this thing pretty much all day. Putting it through its paces. And I think there's a couple of things to talk about here. One is that it's still just a bike. You know, it's got two wheels, it's got gears, it shifts, it's got a seat. You ride it like a bike, and it has all of the things that you would normally associate with a bike. And then kind of the second component, which, you know, is a little bit more philosophical, is what is it in the grander scheme of mountain biking? Who's it for? Who's it not for? Where do you think this thing applies best? And you can really kind of go down a much deeper rabbit hole with that, but you know, just kind of sticking with the nuts and bolts of this specific bike here. Matt, if you're a little bit more geary than I am, if you want to kind of give us a once-over on what we got here.
Sure. So we have a progressive geometry enduro e-bike. It's kind of the grand, broad view of it. But up front we have a Fox 36 float and then another Fox Float X with a piggyback, just so then the shock doesn't get overheated with a full day's riding. We have a Mullet setup, so 29-inch wheel in the front, 27.5 in the back. Helps kind of just turn this beast of a bike. Weighing coming in at 52.8 pounds.
It's heavy.
It's heavy, but I didn't really feel it too much on the trail. I think that it made up for it in other areas. In the back here we have a SRAM GX drivetrain, 12-speed. And then to finish it off, we have Code R brakes. We have a 220 millimeter rotor in the front and 200 in the back, so nice stopping power in the front. Very good match overall for this bike. It all just works together and makes sense for the power that's behind it and the way that it likes to be ridden. So overall, that's pretty much a overview of all the components.
Yep.
Last thing, handlebar width is going to be 780 millimeters with a 35 millimeter stem, so a little bit of adjustability you can have with that if you want to be more upright or more of a pedal stance. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this is the S5. Both Matt and I fit on this really well. At no point did I think it was the wrong size bike, and I'm pretty much a solid S5 across the board for Specialized, I've found. Motor-wise, 600. I have the app. There's a lot of technology going on here.
Mission control.
Yeah, they got mission control. So it's their 2.2 motor, and you know, pretty easy to work with here. 5-hour ride time on this battery, and you know, it's 4 times the power. So that's kind of how they're delineating their motor power, is it's 2x or 4x, whatever you're putting into it. But really all you got to do is sync your app to the center console here, and you can adjust the power settings through there. There's really a whole lot more you can do than we experimented with. You can tune the input, you know, how much you put in versus how much it puts out. It's very intuitive. It also has ride tracking, so if you're not on Strava or whatever, you can use Specialized app for that. A lot of different things that I doubt we'll even scratch the surface.
No.
You know, this is very much an initial overview rather than a long-term assessment of this bike. But you can do cool things, like you can set a limit on heart rate, so you can sync it to a heart rate monitor. You know, if you're an athlete in training, you can say, all right, I want this motor giving me what it needs for me to reach 150, 200 beats per minute. Conversely, if you're older and are using this to, you know, just kind of get in shape, and you don't want your heart rate to go You can adjust it to limit at a certain amount. So there's really just a whole lot you can do with the app and the technology, in addition to swapping out parts. This is as crazy as it sounds, like the low end e-bike. It really so under $6,000 for this thing is it's a ton of bike. When you move up, you're not only moving up in componentry, going from alloy to carbon, you're upgrading kind of your control module unit in there. There's a lot of different upgrades that you can do to this bike, and that's going to obviously tick the price up. But I think for under $6,000, like this is it's a crazy amount of bike.
Absolutely.
Really hard to kind of pick one weakness. I think that both of us kind of thought that just like maneuvering or wrangling the bike around was kind of the harder part. But that's just kind of us in filming and gathering content rather than going for a ride.
Yeah.
So performance-wise, I think we had a lot of fun. I think that our smile ratio was off the charts.
Through the roof.
From a climbing perspective, what you're getting out of this thing is just endless power. I brought this thing home yesterday, did like a 6-mile gravel loop through my neighborhood, which is all steep dirt roads. And I did it in, really, really fast. I didn't even keep time. Didn't sweat. Again, 90 degrees yesterday. Wasn't breathing, didn't sweat. Beautiful. Absolutely amazing. And that translated pretty well to single track, both when we hit it in the morning and the afternoon. So when you get this thing, most of our climbing was done in the mid-range. So there's low, medium, and high. The turbo is really just kind of when you're ripping on dirt roads. The trail is kind of where I think we left it.
Yeah.
And then eco mode, you can put it in there for downhill, but pretty much left it in 2 out of 3, which seemed to be pretty good. But yeah, as soon as you hit the trail and start pedaling, like it makes the uphills as much fun as the downhills, didn't you think?
Absolutely. It's almost like going downhill because you have to have a line choice. Now that you're going faster, you have to decide quickly where you want to go on the uphill, just because it's so much quicker. It's coming at you so much faster.
Yeah.
And that was a real fun challenge for me. I really, really enjoyed that adjustment. And to add, we're coming both from carbon enduro bikes, which are 30, 35 pounds, straight to this. And it maneuvered way better than I thought. Thanks to that mullet and the motor combined, it was a dream going uphill. I did not feel, hindered whatsoever.
Yeah, and I feel like you can get away with the increased travel, like the 160, 150 travel. Like you can get away with that with the motor. The motor just like opens up all of these doors and windows for things that you would have normally thought wouldn't work on a bike. So like climbing uphill, you're not like, I need more travel. But when the motor's applied, it helps. So, add to that, like you were talking about that smaller rear wheel, like the acceleration is really good. Like, do you have a 29?
I do.
Yeah,
full
so
29.
like full 29. And, when you switch to this, but you have to pedal, then you're just pedaling a little faster. When you add the motor, then you're gone, and it feels like you're cruising. So anything climbing, anything flat, it's really hard following someone on an e-bike when you're not on an e-bike. But it was really interesting to see, like, when you were following me filming, and I would say, okay, I'm gone, and conversely, like the difference between motor and non-motor is pretty stark, and I think that we were both pretty surprised with that. I mean, this is my first experience riding an e-bike.
Me too.
So I think we're both kind of experiencing those things for the first time, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then, like, you'd think that at 52 pounds, it would feel kind of hefty and bulky on the downhills, but that's not really the case, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think that's mainly due to the mullet and geometry.
Yeah.
Kind of just all combining into somehow making it super, super nimble. I mean, we were hauling, and it was just eating everything up.
Yep.
Whether it be technical descents, a lot of chunky rocks and roots, or if we were going down a flow trail, it felt right at home, and didn't feel like there was 52 pounds underneath me.
Yeah.
I was very, very impressed. Very impressed.
You know, the motor has a lot to do with that, like sitting low on the bike, you know, bringing that center of gravity down. Whereas, like, naturally, I have a high center of gravity.
Yeah.
So, like, I never feel that comfortable, you know, going fast through corners and stuff like that. I feel tippy.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually really helped me out a whole lot with cornering and just kind of doing, you know, those whoop-de-doos that we found kind of at the end there, where it's really helpful to have that low center of gravity. And just like a ski, like, or a car, the heavier it is, the smoother it's going to be.
Yeah.
So having that weight down low really helped kind of lower that center and keep this thing as smooth as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally think that having that rear wheel be smaller makes sense with the motor. You know, I don't think a 29 would have been awful, but I think that this makes the bike more nimble, and it's hard to talk about like a 52-pound bike being nimble.
Yeah. I think that if you put a 29-inch wheel in the back, you would have to take some travel away.
Yeah.
And then it would be more of a pedal bike. That's more of your major big day, just kind of traversing ups and downs, whereas this would be a little bit more free ride focused, but still a very nice, you know, pedal day bike.
Yeah.
But I think that it's better suited towards something where you're going to encounter some jumps, some steeps, and some technical terrain. So, yeah, I think they nailed it with the Mullet on this one. Big time.
And now kind of for the grander scheme, like, this bike really raises a lot of questions as to who's going to buy it, where are they going to ride it, who are they going to ride it with. You know, we discovered very early on today that you either need to ride this thing by yourself or have friends that also have e-bikes, or just have like super beastly, like
Cross-country
super
guys.
fast
Yeah.
bike friends. But it's hard to mix. It's hard to mix an e-bike rider with a non-e-bike rider. So, you know, you either got to have your buddies or you got to be doing some solo rides.
Yeah.
Either of which is fine, but I think that the mix is tough.
Yeah, have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, smaller trail networks, like we have a couple different pods here in Stowe. I think that this thing works better for kind of spanning those pods as opposed to lapping one of the pods.
Totally.
I think the goal here is to cover more distance with more fun, and you know, just see more trail. When you're limited with your speed, you know, just a regular pedal bike, it's going to change how far you go. You can't just go 10, 15 miles out whenever you want because maybe you have a time constraint. This eliminates that. It also eliminates like the need for a different starting point. Like, you live at the top of a hill.
Yep.
Who cares? I live at the top of a hill. Not a big deal anymore. You just go from wherever you are and you make it back there. You know, things commuting into play, like gravel. You know, like I have a gravel bike. But I almost rather ride this thing 25 miles on the dirt road than my gravel bike. Just having like more, you know, and then that opens up the possibility to be like, oh, there's a single track trail, there's a pod I'm riding by on the right, there I go. Yeah. So it really opens up these possibilities.
And the battery time.
Yep.
Like, we rode it, I would say 4 hours today.
Probably, yeah.
Probably 4 hours, and it's gone down.
I turned it off, sorry.
It's maybe gone down 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
So, you know, and Specialized says that 4 to 5 hours of ride time is typical, but I think that we calculated that that's consistent motor engagement for 4 to 5 hours. That's the length of the battery. So, I mean, the maintenance is very, very low. You only have to charge it once in a very long while unless you do these massive days. And if you want to plan a massive day, you can also use the app to shut off at certain times to make sure that you have battery throughout the entire time, which is really interesting. The app really helps open up a lot of different possibilities. And there's presets that you can make for either terrain or type of ride. It's endless with possibilities.
So it says 50% battery.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, I think that rode enough to satisfy most mortal people. You know, I'm sure that there's some people that would say, nope, that's not enough. It's going to die. I need to, you know, I want to be on human power.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that end of the philosophical spectrum as well. But, you know, I kind of have a hard time thinking that it's not a dirt bike. You know, like going up some of those berms, climbing like some of the more flowy trails, climbing up that stuff, you know, and like I've ridden dirt bikes before. Like this feels more like a dirt bike than my pedal mountain bike.
Yeah.
By a long shot. So, you know, wherever you kind of fall on that philosophical side of the spectrum, you know, it's technology. Like how far back do you want to take it before you know, do you want to go back to rigid? Do you want to go back to one speed? Do you want to eliminate dropper posts? You know, kind of go backwards in technology. Mm-hmm. But this motor, I think, kind of takes it to a different level as to more mechanical things. Once we enter this digital phase, that seems to bring up a different level of conversation.
Totally. And the demographic is broadened so much more.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a young person's game. You can be definitely a bit older and still be able to have a ton of fun and go on those massive rides with your friends.
Yep.
And which is even better. You know, the more people we can get on bikes, the better. And I think that it's more of a good thing than a bad thing.
Totally.
I know that that's a huge debate, but
that's all part of the fun.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. It's still a bike. The motor brings it to the dirt bike side of the spectrum in my mind. It doesn't make it it makes it more fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to go back. We went back to the analog version and that was a struggle. But you know, going from just trying to climb steep technical stuff to then just pedaling without the motor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the 2022 Specialized Turbo Levo alloy comp. Again, you know, I think this is a great deal for the money. You know, sky's the limit in terms of e-bikes. You know, I think they make this thing carbon fully loaded for about $15,000. So there's a lot of upward mobility in these e-bikes, but for what it is, I think this is a great value and a super fun bike. So Matt, thank you for joining us and roasting those corners for us.
My pleasure.
Definitely not as roasty of a cornerer, but I like it all the same.
I do have one final thought.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Really quick. I forgot to mention, for how big this bike is and how heavy it is, it can jump.
Oh yeah.
I had it on a flow trail today, and I was so surprised. I felt like I was on my bike, my personal bike, and that was one of the main takeaways. I was kind of worried, you know, that it would be kind of sluggish on the takeoffs, and then it would just be a huge compression on the landing, but it was so smooth, so floaty. I could do some whips on it. I could move it in the air. So like with that, thank you Specialized, because this is one heck of a bike for this price, and good job.
Yep.
Good job. All right, now I'm done.
All right. So yeah, that's the bike. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or comments. Be more than happy to answer them. If you find yourself in Stowe, we got some of these at Pinnacle Ski and Sports for demo. This is one of our demos. But yeah, if you get a chance to get on an e-bike and rip it through the woods, I highly recommend doing it.
Totally.
But yeah, that's it. Definitely reach out if you have any comments, and we'll see you out here on the trails.
Bye.